This is me. This is my audience. Wave at the camera.
Hey.
You have to say hey. Chip.
So today I'm going to tell you guys about the scandal going on in college basketball right now. So if you guys can kind of take into, just kind of put this in your mind, if you're an 18-year-old kid and you're playing basketball, you're pretty good, and all of a sudden you're going to get recruited and people are throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at you to play at a certain school, I mean, you're going to go there. And so that's basically what's been going on in college basketball for years. And the FBI has just started an investigation that brought to light everything that's been going down in college basketball for the past couple of years. So basically for this speech, I'm going to tell you guys what the scandal is, what's the kind of the basis of what's going on, and then kind of why it's important and why is this kind of like a shady area of, is this really a big issue or is it not? So to start off, the FBI sent out probes into the NCAA a couple years ago because they caught word of an Adidas official kind of bribing college coaches to pay players to come to their school. So according to NBC, all that they were trying to do basically is secure themselves. Adidas was trying to secure endorsements for themselves when these players get big and graduate from college and go to the NBA. So some of the major coaches that were involved in this scandal is Rick Pitino, the head basketball coach for Louisville. There's assistant coaches at Auburn and USC. So it's kind of all over the country. There's people, more Adidas schools are kind of starting to surface as the investigation continues. But according to The Ringer, which is a sports article site, the FBI sent out undercover agents. They had special informants, and they wiretapped like offices and like phones, so that they were like kind of gathering up information to let it go public. To do this, they kind of like tapped like offices, and in those offices, the Adidas officials kind of came in and met with coaches and kind of went over with them and said, look, like we have a lot of money for these players once they reach the NBA, but we'll pay you $100,000 to pay these players to come play for your school since you're an Adidas school. So it was kind of, the coaches kind of realized that it was going to be a good thing for them, and Adidas was pushing these schools to get these players, obviously. Now the issue with this is that there's kind of a gray area with the NCAA because it's still technically an amateur sport. So players aren't allowed to make any money off of their name, which is really the issue because the FBI report shows like a conversation between like coaches and the Adidas official, and basically the official said if we could pay the players, we wouldn't have to do it like this, but that's not allowed yet. So if you can basically provide this player, this recruit who's going to go to the NBA anyway, if you let him play on your team since you're an Adidas school, will allow you to kind of reap the benefit, which is why so many coaches all over the country have decided to do it. However, I think that if we could kind of cut back on like the amateurism of the sport, like scandals like this wouldn't be such an issue because they could, like Adidas could endorse like a player or like a certain group instead of having to go behind like the law and cause such an issue for everybody. The New York Times stated that when the New York Times stated that they expect this scandal to be the largest in college sports history, not even basketball, because Adidas backs so many different sports programs of football, basketball, baseball. They back so many different schools that the New York Times fears that it's going to spread throughout all of college sports, and hopefully it'll lead to major reforms, and maybe it'll end scandals like this as far as the scandals go as from now on. Basically, that's to conclude. I just want to kind of recap, like what. I want to recap that people they sent probes out and kind of captured this scandal, and as it continues to grow, I think the reform is going to kind of diminish that gray area of amateurism in sports, and it'll hopefully prevent it as time goes on. Do you guys have any questions?
Was it just Adidas that got caught? Was there any other brand?
It was, as of now. I mean, the main focus is because they realized that it was one Adidas official that kind of reached out to all these different schools and kind of got more coaches, which he's now been fired. And a lot of these coaches were fired as well. Anybody else? Kelly?
Is it just like the coaches that get fined, or is it the schools too, like as a whole? Or?
So as of now, the coaches, nobody's gotten fined. So the coaches that were all involved got either suspended without pay, or they got fired completely, just because it's not technically the school's fault. Because a lot of the times, like in a lot of the interviews that I was reading, like with athletic directors and like schools across the nation, like a lot of the times they say that they didn't know about it. So like the athletic program in general isn't in trouble, it's just the coach for interacting with the Adidas official himself and kind of accepting bribes and basically defrauding the NCAA. Any other questions?
Will this impact the players' future in the NBA, or was it not their fault really?
It's unknown. Like I was trying to figure out the same thing because it's very interesting. Like if they are accepting the bribe technically, but it's being pushed on them as an 18-year-old kid. I mean, you don't really know whether or not you're doing the right thing yet. So as of now, the players aren't being affected, but as I said, the investigation is still ongoing, so who knows what can happen.
How long has the investigation been going on, and how long do you think this scandal been going on, like, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think this scandal has been going on since college basketball began. I mean, it's always been kind of like, people have been kind of guessing that players are getting paid to go to certain schools, but the investigation itself started in March of this year. Any questions? No?